Hello folks, today we have Dhruv, who is an alumnus of NIT Jaipur. He has secured Maharashtra Rank of 3 and All India Rank of 6 in Maharashtra MBA CET 2021. He is pursuing his Masters in Management Studies at Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies, also popularly known as JBIMS. Let's start with the discussion. Over to you, Akash.
Thanks, Arya. Thanks, Dhruv, for joining us. So my first question to you would be, what exactly is the exam pattern and the marking scheme of the CET exam?
So the CET has an easy pattern. There's 200 questions in 150 minutes. So 75 marks of logical reasoning, 25 marks of abstract reasoning, and 50 marks each of quantitative and verbal. And there's +1 and -0 marking system in it. So there's no negative marking possible.
Okay, that's great. Got it. Okay, so moving on, when exactly do you start preparing for the CET exam? As in which month and year?
So frankly speaking, I wasn't preparing for CET. I was concentrating on CAT since the past 1.5 years. This was my second attempt for CAT, the 2021. I started preparing it in January 2020.
Oh, okay.
This was my first attempt in CET because it didn't happen last year. In the last academic.
Okay, got it.
You got cancelled because of COVID?
Yeah, the exam was supposed to happen in March, but it took place in September. So CAT took place twice and CET only once in the time that I was preparing for it.
Okay. So then, like, coming to a very important aspect of CAT or CET coaching is coaching classes. So in in your terms, did you join any classes? And if yes, since when did you join them?
Yeah, so as I was saying, I started preparing for it in January 2020, and that's when I joined time classes in Jaipur, where my college was situated at the time.
Okay.
So during the time I attended classes till March, and then lockdown happened, after which the classes were moved online after a month or so. So it started in April. But by the time I had seen online lectures, which were uploaded on the time website itself. So then I didn't attend the rest of my lectures because it was more time consuming and I didn't need much help with the theory anyways.
Okay. So from Jan to March, for a matter of 2 months, I think you attended offline classes, right?
Yes.
So in that time, did you observe that there were more of engineering students, or was it a diverse set of backgrounds that candidates were coming from?
So mine was a special batch. In my batch, only students from NIT Jaipur were allowed in. So all of us were engineers and everyone had a good background in quantitative and logical reasoning. So the class was also fast paced and we could learn things faster than the rest of the classes.
Oh, okay. So being an engineer, you think you had an upper hand as compared to other candidates?
Yes, definitely. And as I said, in logical reasoning and quantitative aptitude, it was way easier for engineers. And I saw that with my peers too. Like everyone was a percentile of 95 plus in each section was just expected out.
Wow.
Oh,
okay.
Moving forward, what was the teaching pattern in your coaching class? In the sense that, was it online, offline, both? And what was the distribution between the two?
So in the first 2 months, that's January to February and a bit of March, the classes were fully offline. Those were situated just outside our college. So we attended it and it was just on Saturday, Sunday, about 2 lectures a day. So that's 4 hours a day. And post which, during the online time, which started in April first week, it continued till July, but it wasn't that I didn't attend much of them because, as I said, I had already finished the online lectures that were uploaded on the website. And good thing is that the ones that have been already uploaded, you can watch them at 1.5x, 2x, or pause them whenever you have to make notes. And so I stopped attending the online lectures altogether.
We could study at our own pace, basically.
Yes, it was a very big advantage.
That's great. How was your course structure planned out throughout the months for the preparation of the exam?
So most of my quantitative syllabus was completed since I started it because I'm a JEE student and I'd done everything in maths that was possible for CAT. And still the method in some of the questions that were in CAT were a bit different because in JEE you get about 2 to 3 minutes per question, but over here you barely get a minute or two. And in CET especially, there's just 40 to 45 seconds on average per question that you can give. So in these questions, you have to learn the methods that they provide. And in those methods, most of the times you generally have to apply the formula and put in the values and you get the answers. And even rest of the times, there's small tricks and tips which you might learn from some books and classes in particular.
Got it. So what was the level of questions in the coaching class as compared to the actual test in the coaching class that you attended?
So are you talking about the ones that were solved in the coaching classes or the mock exams that I gave?
The ones that were solved in the coaching class, the ones that the teachers solved with you.
So in coaching classes, we started from the easier questions where we were just applying the formulas in the question so as to learn about the formula, how it is used and why is it used basically. And after that, once the concepts were getting stronger, they would build up on it and there would be even questions more difficult than the actual paper. So that even if the few questions that are more difficult in the paper, so that you're able to answer them. Because you should always focus on being able to solve each and every question, no matter what you solve that in the actual paper or not.
Yeah, but the level of questions that you were solving towards the end of your preparation, or maybe between the mid and the end of your preparation, were like as difficult or more difficult than the questions in the actual test, right?
Yes. So by the end, when I was well averse with all the topics that were coming in the exam, I started preparing for just the questions that were difficult and the questions that I had marked as difficult or the ones I couldn't solve in my first try. So you generally, when you solve a book, you mark the questions that you weren't able to solve in the first try, right? So I did that again and again during the end so that I covered everything in a better way.
Great. Moving forward and picking up on a point that you just mentioned, how many mocks did you give on your own and what was your percentile in those? Also, just a small follow-up question on this was that how many months before the actual exam did you give these mocks? Start giving these mocks?
So I joined time in January 2020. The time has a test series called AIMCAT. So it happens during the start, it happens once in 3 to 4 weeks. And by the end, it's coming in every 10 to 14 days. The frequency increases. But what they make you do is, and they make you do it in the classes, that you have to give a AIMCAT as and when it comes. So from the first month itself, I was giving at least one mock test every month. And after March, when lockdown started, I started giving one mock test every week. And after my syllabus was complete, I started giving 2 mocks a week. And by the last month, when there was nothing much else to do, I started giving a mock test almost every alternate day, let's say 3 times a week.
Okay, so like in the time period when from Jan to around May, when your syllabus wasn't over, then what was the idea behind giving mocks then?
So CAT and CET both are just aptitude exams. Even if you go into the exam without preparing anything, and if you're given enough time, you would be able to solve each and every question. But the main thing that is being tested is how many questions would you be able to do in a limited amount of time. So even though I wasn't able to do all the questions, I knew how to do them. And since I didn't know the particular method, I couldn't solve much questions, but there wasn't a difficulty that you would be facing, even without completing the syllabus.
Okay. Okay.
You got it. So, did you separately enroll for any statewide mock test or particular test series other than the one that you just mentioned? If you did, what was your overall performance in them? I'm talking here in terms of rank and percentile.
For mock tests, in my first attempt, I just joined time, and during the starting months, the first two exams were very nice, and by that I would mean 99.5 percentile, because even everyone else wasn't prepared, but my basics were strong, so I outscored them easily. But during the start, I didn't concentrate that much as it was required, and then I slacked to around 90 percentile to 92 percentile till April. And again, after May, I started getting into percentiles about 96, 97 in the first attempt. And by the last month, like October, that I would say, it was 98 percentile to sometimes even 99 percentile, and always about 97%. On average, I would say it was 98. And in my second attempt, that was this year, I started preparing after May this time again. And the percentile was around 96 to 97 when I started. Around September, it increased to consistently about 98.5. And by the end, it was around 98 to 99.
Amazing.
Okay. So just to be clear, these mocks you're talking about are CAT mocks or CET mocks?
So in both these years, I've given around 30 to 40 CAT mocks each. And you'd be surprised, but for CET, I've just given 3 mock tests.
So 3 mocks. When did you give these mocks?
So I wasn't preparing for CET as such, but I'd filled the form anyway since quite some time. And the exam was on second week of September, and the exam date just came a week ago, exactly 7 days before the exam. So that's when I started giving CET mocks. And I gave and even after that, my exam was preponed by 2 days. So I just had 5 days to prepare for CET in particular. And I gave 3 mocks during those 5 days.
Okay. So like, do coaching classes, like for instance, time here, does time also have its separate CET specific mock tests or like batches for CET, or like, do they only focus on CAT?
It's good you asked it. Regarding test series, in my second attempt, I didn't join any specific class. I just joined a test series through IMS and Time both. And both of them have different packages. One of them is that you get mock tests for just the CAT exams, and the other one is where you get mock tests for even other exams like NMAT, SNAP, CET, IIFT, and many others. So I had taken the latter one, so I could give other mock entrance exams.
Okay, so one follow-up question which I have is, so how would you rank CET in terms of other MBA exams?
On what basis should I rank?
As in terms of difficulty?
In terms of difficulty, I would say that CET is the easiest of them on terms of the difficulty of the questions themselves. But if you look at the times, it's the least time you get in any exam per question, because you just get 45 seconds here, and in every other exams you get at least a minute and sometimes even 2 minutes. So it's a combination of both, and it doesn't matter much because in the end it's just about the percentile that you get, the amount of marks that you get more than the other people, not the actual marks that you get. So difficulty wouldn't matter that much. So if you're just well prepared for one and you are able to give the other exams, you would be able to do that by giving mocks of that exam. And if you're just able to give them nicely, then you don't have to worry about the difficulty. You can just breeze through them, because I just breezed through CET. As I told you, I just gave 3 mock tests and I just prepared for CAT, and on the basis of that, you can easily score in other exams.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, in CET, I'll just add something. In CET, there's just an extra section for abstract reasoning, but It's very basic, and for that, the only practice you need to do is practice some questions. And that also I did through the 3 mock tests.
Okay.
That's great. As we all know, like this is similar to all competitive exams in India. Everything is relative.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on, which books did you refer to for your preparation, if you did refer any books? It would be great if you can also mention the author or publication if you know.
Yes. So during the first attempt, I referred to the books that were given to me by time classes. And those books were nice. They covered every question that was possible. But in terms of theory, it covered everything, but this number of solved examples were a bit less. But since they expect you to attend the classes, it's not a problem. But in the second time, when I was learning by myself, like revising everything, I started referring to Arun Sharma for all 3 of the sections, that's logical reasoning, quantitative, and verbal. And Arun Sharma has very nice theory. It might look like a 500 to 600 page book that's A4 in size, but if you start reading it, it's in a very simple manner, and everything is given in a nice chronological manner so that it's interesting to learn. And even the questions are divided in level of difficulty 1, 2, and 3. So you go phase by phase. And for CET, I would suggest just LOD 1 is enough for CAT and other exams up till LOD 2. LOD 3 isn't necessary as such. So if I was to refer just one book, Arun Sharma is enough.
Okay. So like it has all the formulae, theory, and then they have questions in 3 different levels.
Yes. So what I did was that it was a very big book. So when I was reading the theory, I did a quick reading, and the formulas and specific tips and tips that were to be noted, I noted them down in a notebook. And after that, I just saw the solved examples so that I could know the specific method that I would have to use in them. And followed by them, I would solve level of difficulty 1. And then after all my all my topics were done, LOD 1, then I moved on to level of difficulty 2.
Okay.
That was about it.
Okay.
So moving on, Dhruv. So what was your plan of study? Like how many hours did you allot to various subjects throughout the week?
So I'll start with my first attempt. So during the January to March, before the pandemic, I was barely giving it 2 hours a day, and it clearly wasn't enough because my percentile came down from 99.5 to 90. But as the lockdown came, I started preparing a lot. I gave it around 6 to 8 hours daily because the college was closed and I had literally nothing else to do.
Okay.
So I did. So there was Coursera and stuff, but that was just about 2 to 3 hours a day, and the rest of my productive hours went into CAT preparations. That was 6 to 8 hours. In that, I just divided the time. So during the first till June, I was doing 2 to 3 sets of LRDI questions. That's 10 to 12 questions.
Okay.
Followed by 3 to 4 reading comprehensions for English, and 1 chapter of maths every 3 days I would be completing. So I started completing chapters one by one. So my syllabus was completed by June. After which I started giving sectional tests, which are the best thing you can do to analyze the time you're taking for each question, because time is the key that you're measuring, and through sectional tests it gets covered. And as I told you about the mock exams, I would say that the rate at which you're increasing, mine I would consider ideal, but if you're giving less amount of mock exams, you can adjust accordingly.
Okay.
And in the second attempt also, I completed my syllabus in May to June and started sectional tests since July.
Okay. So following up on that question, Dhruv, so what was like your plan just 5 to 6 months before the exam? Like, so were you giving more mocks at that time? were you studying on some of the important topics? So what was your plan then, 5 to 6 months before the exam?
So 5 to 6 months before the exam, so that's after June. So by that time, my notes were ready for each and every subject. So whenever I felt that I can't remember some concepts, I would refer to those particular notes, and I would make sure that every month I'll read each and every page of my notes at least once, so that all the concepts are freshly in my mind.
Okay.
And the number of mock tests should go on increasing, because at the end of the day, just before the exam, you have to manage the time, because there's a limit up to which you'll do the theory part. You'll be well versed with it as the time goes. So concentrate more on sectional tests and tests at the end.
Okay. So moving on, Dhruv. So are there any chapters in quants or like verbal LRDI that have more priority, that have high priority, that depending on their weightage?
So in verbal ability, the syllabus is quite short. There's a fixed amount of reading comprehension questions, and there's a bit of verbal ability. So that's nothing unusual.
Okay.
Then in LRDI, it's fully random. You can't predict the paper. Sometimes it could be just too difficult and you won't be able to complete 3 sets, and sometimes you might even be able to complete 4 sets. So I would suggest is be well prepared with each and every concept in LRDI.
Okay.
And because you wouldn't be able to pick questions on the basis of which chapter you're well versed with, you'll be having to pick the sets which are easier. So you have to find the easier set irrespective of the topic from which it comes, because you can't quit an easy set, because you have to solve it.
Okay.
And then quantitative aptitude, one thing that you must do is arithmetic. Do it without fail, because there's a lot of weightage to it. But then again, if you're trying to get a percentile above 99 in CAT, and in CET, my only target was JBIMS. That's a cutoff of 99.97 percentile. So I was supposed to prepare for everything, and I did prepare for everything, because if you're aiming for anything above 99, you should be well versed with everything, because the question isn't about which chapters would you solve. It's about solving the easier ones and skipping the difficult ones, so that you are able to save time.
Right. So like while taking
selection of questions is also a skill, right?
Yes, selection is very, very important, because let's say if I'm giving 40 minutes to logical reasoning, I'll spend 5 minutes picking the questions, because if you pick one wrong set and you waste 10 minutes, and even after that you don't get an answer, you're just wasting 10 minutes.
True.
Okay.
So picking is very important.
Like, is this applicable for CET as well, or in CET you have to just go on solving the questions as they come?
So in CET, the thing is, first, up to 2020, there was a fixed pattern that each and every section was differently marked. Let's say the first 50 were quantitative, then the next section, then the next. But this year, everyone was taken by surprise. All the questions were randomly arranged. So you weren't able to sort them initially. But what I did was, I skipped each and every logical reasoning questions, which was in a set of 4 to 5 questions, because then you have to invest about 5 to 6 minutes in it in any manner, no matter is it difficult or easy. So I skipped all of them in the beginning, and even the reading comprehension passages and every question which was basically in a set of 4 to 5, I skipped them in the beginning. And rest of the questions you can see is more than 70% of them would be solved in 30 to 40 seconds, or sometimes even lesser. So solve them as and when you see it. And if there's some question that you know that I'm able to solve it, but it would take a minute and a half, so that's quite some time, you just mark it and move on. And I solved the paper in 100 minutes, and 50 minutes were left for the second round when I solved the rest of the questions.
Okay, so like going back and forth is allowed in both the exams?
Yes, in both. And CAT, the thing is, once you've there's 3 sections and 40 minutes for each. First is verbal ability, second is DILR, and the third is quant. So you can't move between the sections, but you can move between the questions. So you can skip any particular question and move on to the next. And in CET, it's completely flexible. You can attempt whichever question you want in whichever mark. There's no time constraints within the paper.
Okay, got it.
Any set of particular study tips for each section of the examination, Dhruv?
What I would say is set a weekly target about the numbers of chapters that you want to cover in this week, so that you're able to complete the syllabus in 2 months. And the syllabus is very easy. It shouldn't be taking more than 3 months in any case. And in my second stint, I was working too, so I couldn't give more than 4 hours or 5 hours in a day. And still, I was able to revise everything in 45 to 50 days. And post which you will be moving on to the test. And then make good notes, because you wouldn't be able to revise everything again and again. So for maths, I formed a sheet for just the formulas. Although it wasn't a sheet, it was more like 15 to 17 pages. But you have to have that in which if you read once, you'll get to know each and every formula and you don't have to look back.
Yeah.
Then remember the percentages. Like 1 by 1 is 100%, 1 by 2 is 50, so on to 1 by 20, that's 5%, and out to the second decimal.
Okay.
It also helps you in division. Suppose if it's 100 by 7, you would be directly remembering it's 14.2. It should be registered in your mind. Then search for quick maths for CAT or CET. It's a very important thing, and even if you're able to save 3 to 4 minutes, it's about 5 to 6 marks, and it's very important in a competitive exam. So always go for quick maths. And after that, always pick the right questions. I told you about how I used to solve in DILR. In quantitative, I started from the first question and went on to the last. But in the first round, I would just solve the questions which I know would be completed within a minute in CAT and within 30 to 40 seconds in CET. And in the second round, you would solve the questions which you know that you can definitely solve them by giving some more time. And in the third time, if there's still time left, you go for the questions which you aren't much sure about, but there's a chance of you solving. And in verbal, you have to make a fixed strategies. What for CAT, what some of the people do is first they'll do 2 comprehensions, then the verbal ability, then 1 more comprehension. Some people do verbal ability at first and some do it completely at the end. You have to pick the one which works for you. And for picking a particular strategy, the best thing is to do is do A/B testing. It's like give 3 mock tests with this particular strategy and give another 3 with another strategy, and then see which one works for you, which one gives you better results, and stick with that. And go on trying it. I tried it the very last month, but the last 4 mock tests that I gave were with a fixed strategy. So try a lot of strategies. No one has a one particular strategy that works. It's flexible.
So coming to the end, Dhruv, so like one day before the exam, like all the students take out. So any tips one day before the exam that you could give to our viewers?
So the one advantage that I had, like I know that I wasn't as prepared as someone who would get a rank of 3 in CET. So the one advantage that I had was I was fully composed about it. I didn't worry about it, because if you had a lot of options, that if CET fails, have CAT. If CAT fails, have SNAP and NMAT. So no matter what, I knew I would get a good B school some way or another. You just have to get lucky in one exam, and you can get the full marks and get into the school. So don't worry. And before the day of the exam, you've prepared enough. You don't have to worry about revising everything. Just go through the formulas of math and just relax. Meet with your friends if you want to, but don't stress upon reading each and everything and getting on.
Okay.
So,
One more thing I like to add, after you solve the exams, each and every question that you missed or solved wrongly, you have to write a note. Why was this wrong or why did I skip it? And even
Okay.
after that, write the important takeaways that you got from the paper.
Okay.
And even those takeaways you can read before the exam, because
The
you should
exam.
keep in mind that I wouldn't be repeating these particular.
Okay.
So
Okay.
maintaining an error log basically is what you're saying, right?
Yes. So
Okay.
after every answer sheet, I had a small section as a error log, and I wrote my takeaways there, and it helped me to not repeat my mistakes.
Okay. So like, were there any online channels or online sources available to study, or quick math as you mentioned, or like Vedic math? So
Vedic maths is something too complex, and quick maths it's just easy things like multiplication, addition, and finding squares.
Okay.
That is easily available online. What I did was I had a book from Time, and it covered most of the things.
okay.
And online you'll easily find just, and there's a channel called 2IIM, the number 2IIM.
Okay.
They have a lot of very nice solved examples and a couple of mock exams too. And for whatever source that I wanted, I searched for Quora in the beginning, because along with the question, along with answering my question, they also had a proper review, because people would state their experiences. How did they find this particular exam? Something like
Okay.
Okay.
that. Find it on Quora for anything particular.
Okay.
got it. So I have a personal question for you, Dhruv. Since we know you since school,
Yeah.
and now that we know that you're going to one of the most prestigious colleges in India for management studies, the so-called CEO factory. My question to you is, what would an ideal future look for you? This is just an off the books question, which like personally we wanted to know what does an ideal future look for you? Maybe say 10, 20 years down the line.
So in 20 years down the line, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm not setting a specific goal, because if I set a goal and if I'm able to achieve something more than that, then I wouldn't be limited by it.
Yeah.
And other than that, because I myself wasn't expecting to get into JBIMS at the first place, but I got in because I just did the best that I could, and it resulted in me getting here. Because if I would have been thinking just realistically, I wouldn't have given seat.
Right. So like, but do you
If
have
I
a
was to
yeah?
name something,
Continue.
what my aspirations are, I would like to be at a tier one job at the very top of a company. Maybe it would be a CEO or even a partner or something like that.
But like, is there a specific type of company like FMCG or investment banking or consulting? So which space would you explore in?
So in the start of my career, I would go for consulting, because there's no other field that you can learn as much in this amount of time, because they expect you to work about more than 100 hours to a week, and it's a very steep learning curve, and that's what I'm looking for. But after 4 to 5 years in consulting, then I wouldn't be so sure, because one of the other factors about me choosing consulting would be that it gives you an entrance to any field that you want to. It's very much like engineering, that you completed your engineering and now you're open to a lot many options.
Right.
So, yeah,
Okay.
so
So
I can't
consulting
say
provides you with more of a generalist role than a specialist role.
yes, and it would let me go into a number of different sections. Like I might get a project in IT this year, the next year I might be into production, another year I might be into logistics. So I would like to get a macro view about everything, so that in the future, when the time comes that I have to overlook everything, my experience might be helpful.
Just explore your horizon. the consulting.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Don't limit yourself right now.
Got it. Makes sense completely. So unless we have other questions from Dhairya and Aditya, and unless Dhruv wants to add something to the session, I think we have come to the end of the session. And we'd like to thank Dhruv for taking out time and for all the information provided by you. And I think it will surely be helpful to all the CET and CAT aspirants out there. So thank you once again, Dhruv. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
No
Dhruv.
problem. Yeah, it was my pleasure.
Hey folks, thank you for watching our video.
Please like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Also, guys, please don't forget to mention your views in the comment section below, and see you soon with our next video.